Picture a man sitting silently in front of a sheet of rice paper. In his right hand he holds a brush dipped in black ink with slow, deliberate movements. He draws a calligraphy stroke with the same precision he'd use to swing a sword. Now, imagine that same man, hours later, standing before an opponent katana, drawn, moving with the same calm focus. That man is Miyamoto Musashi, legendary Japanese swordsman, known for never losing a single duel in his lifetime. But what many don't know is that Musashi was also an artist, a painter, a poet, a philosopher. To him, the brush was just as vital as the blade. Art wasn't a distraction from battle. It was a form of mastery. So let's ask the question almost no one asks. Why were history's greatest warriors also artists? In today's world, that idea sounds contradictory. We separate everything: mind and body, logic and emotion, work and creativity. We're taught that a fighter can't be sensitive, that an artist can't be disciplined, but maybe. That's exactly our mistake. Musashi wrote the Book of Five Rings, a work on strategy, but also on rhythm, perception, and intuition. In his words, the way of the warrior is the way of all arts. He believed painting sharpened his awareness. Observing nature trained his perception. Mastering multiple disciplines didn't distract from his skill. It deepened it. And Musashi wasn't the only one. In ancient China, generals studied music, painting, and philosophy. In ancient Greece, leaders like Pericles were warriors and architects. During the Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci was a painter, engineer, anatomist, musician, and inventor. Bruce Lee, martial artist and cultural icon, was also a poet and a philosopher. He famously said, "The highest art of fighting is not to fight at all." They weren't anomalies, they were whole. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Modern society pushes us toward specialization. Focus on one thing, become an expert. The pressure to be efficient, fast, and valuable often means narrowing ourselves down to one lane, one skill, one version of ourselves. Trying to do more than one thing, that's seen as scattered, indecisive, unfocused. But what if this mindset is what's limiting us? A McKinsey study found that 81% of companies actively seek specialists, but when facing complex, unpredictable problems, specialists often fall short. Generalists, those with broader skill sets, are better equipped to find innovative solutions and adapt under pressure. Author David Epstein explored this in his book Range: Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. Through research and case studies, he shows how generalists outperform specialists in environments where change, creativity, and critical thinking are essential. The more unpredictable the world becomes, he writes, the more we need people who can connect dots across disciplines. So, why do we still feel we have to choose between the sword and the brush? Why is it hard to believe someone can be both strong and sensitive, tactical and expressive, logical and intuitive? The truth is, ancient cultures understood something we've forgotten. Excellence doesn't lie in hyperspecialization, it lives in deep integration. The warrior and the artist weren't opposites. There were two expressions of one whole human being. The Bushido, or way of the warrior, demanded more than martial skill. It called for a code of ethics, aesthetic appreciation, philosophical understanding. To be a samurai was to be cultivated in body, mind, and spirit. In Hokugyo, Sunitomo Yamamoto wrote, "A warrior must cultivate his mind with the same intensity as he trains his body." That brings us to a deeper problem: internal fragmentation. Psychologist Carl Jung said that modern man suffers from a fragmentation of the soul. We become so focused on function, engineer, doctor, analyst, whatever the title, that we forget we are also emotion, intuition, and presence. When we deny those other parts, we feel disconnected, empty, out of alignment. Multidisciplinarity isn't about doing 1,000 things at once. It's about awakening dormant parts of yourself. It's about embracing complexity and allowing your identity to expand. Think about your own life. How many passions have you buried in the name of productivity? How many skills did you stop developing because someone said, "That's not practical"? How many versions of you are still waiting to be lived? Maybe your greatest potential is hidden in the things you've ignored. History shows us the greatest masters weren't one-dimensional. They were warriors who painted, artists who trained, thinkers who moved with grace and purpose. Because they understood, real power is never crude, it's refined. The strength of a warrior doesn't come from muscle alone. It comes from perception, awareness, and self-mastery. And all of that can be trained through art. As this video unfolds, you'll see why trying to be great at just one thing might be holding you back. You'll learn how to reclaim the parts of yourself that still want to breathe, and you'll walk the same path as those who didn't choose between the sword or the brush. They chose both. But before we continue, I want to ask something from you. This channel exists to go deep, to think long, to reflect on timeless wisdom that doesn't fit into viral trends, and that only happens because people like you believe in that mission. If this message resonates with you, if you feel this kind of content matters, consider becoming a member. Your support helps keep this channel independent, thoughtful, and free to explore ideas the world often forgets. Now, let's keep going, because this journey is just beginning. Being a multidimensional person doesn't mean being scattered. That's one of the biggest misconceptions of our time. We've been conditioned to believe that depth can only come through narrow focus, that to be great at something, we have to give everything else up, choose a path, commit to it, and never look back. If you deviate, people call you indecisive, unfocused, immature. But is that really the truth? Let's look again at Leonardo da Vinci. He wasn't just a painter, he was an anatomist, engineer, mathematician, sculptor, architect, musician, and philosopher. And precisely because of that range, he's remembered as one of the greatest minds in human history. His studies of the human body made his paintings remarkably accurate. His understanding of mechanics helped him invent machines no one had ever imagined. He didn't compartmentalize knowledge, he connected it, and that gave him a vision the world had never seen before. He's not the exception, he's a reminder. Isaac Newton studied theology and alchemy while writing the laws of motion. Albert Einstein played the violin daily and said that many of his best ideas came not through math, but through music. Miyamoto Musashi, toward the end of his life, turned almost entirely to painting. He left behind ink drawings of birds, bamboo, flowers, all done with the same precision and stillness he used in battle. These men weren't dabbling, they were cultivating their souls. Art sharpens awareness, combat sharpens instinct, philosophy expands the mind, gardening teaches patience, and together they train a human being to be whole. In feudal Japan, the ideal samurai wasn't just a warrior, he was expected to be a man of depth, trained in martial arts, but also in poetry, flower arrangement, calligraphy, and meditation. The Bushido was not just a manual for combat, it was a code for life, a way of being, a pursuit of harmony between strength and refinement. In Hogaku Chamamoto says, when you understand the art of the sword and also the art of the brush, you realize they are one and the same. That's not a metaphor, a revelation. Both the blade and the ink demand presence, focus, silence, precision, whether in a duel or in a poem. What's being tested is not the hand, it's the soul behind it. Zen philosopher Dazitsu T. Suzuki once wrote that the point of martial training wasn't to defeat others, it was to defeat the ego, to empty the self. Art, he said, served the same purpose, but while the ancients sought this balance, we've drifted far from it. We live in the age of hustle, of constant output, notifications, multitasking, a world where painting is a luxury, where poetry is dismissed, where sitting in silence is seen as lazy. But maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what we're missing. According to research from the Harvard Business Review, professionals who regularly engage in creative hobbies report higher levels of personal satisfaction, sharper focus, and reduced burnout. They're also more resilient and emotionally balanced. Art is not a distraction, it's maintenance for the soul. Carl Jung believed that the modern person is psychologically fragmented, disconnected from their own inner dimensions. Overspecialization, he said, creates a sort of spiritual anemia. You may function well, but you don't feel alive. And that's the real conflict of our time. We've got access to all the world's knowledge, but we're experts at only one type of existence. We know how to work, we know how to produce, we know how to optimize, but we're strangers to stillness, to beauty, to awe. Philosopher Heraclitus once said, the way up and the way down are one and the same. He meant that opposites are not enemies, they are reflections. The movement of the warrior and the brushstroke of the artist are two expressions of the same force. Taoism teaches the same with its yin-yang symbol, power and softness, motion and stillness, light and shadow in perfect harmony. Each gives birth to the other. But when you divide these forces within yourself, when you try to be only logical, or only sensitive, or only technical, or only intuitive, you break the internal rhythm. You become half a self, and life starts to lose meaning. At this point, you might be wondering, but I'm just a regular person, not a samurai, not an artist. How does this apply to me? And the answer is simple. This isn't about becoming legendary, it's about becoming whole. If you're an engineer, you can also play guitar. If you're a doctor, you can also paint. If you're a fighter, you can write. If you work with numbers, you can plant a garden. None of these things make you less of a professional. They make you more of a human. David Epstein, in Range, points out that those who cultivate broad interests are more adaptable, more creative, and more capable of solving problems in unfamiliar contexts. They don't just think outside the box, they see patterns no one else sees. This isn't about being mediocre at everything, it's about living in more than one dimension. The sword and the brush are not enemies. They're a perfect metaphor for what you could become. Someone who acts with precision and feels with depth. Someone who achieves but never loses their soul in the process. Because life is an art, and every art requires discipline, practice, silence, and presence. In the next chapter, we'll go even deeper. You'll discover how this philosophy can reshape your daily life, reignite forgotten passions, and restore the parts of you that you didn't even know were missing. And by the end, maybe you'll realize the most powerful thing you can become is complete. You've come this far, so maybe now you're asking yourself, okay, I get it, but where do I begin? That's one of the most honest and also one of the hardest questions to ask. Because modern life didn't prepare us to be whole. It prepared us to choose, to shrink, to fit into one role. We've been trained to ignore half of what we are, taught that curiosity must be productive, that passion must be monetized, that anything without a measurable outcome is a waste of time. But what if true mastery begins not with specialization, but with restoration? Not with doing more, but with becoming more of yourself. The warrior artist inside you may have gone silent. He may have been told to sit down, stay quiet, be reasonable, but he's still there. And he's waiting. The first step isn't technical, it's internal. It's changing the way you see yourself. Stop defining yourself by your job title. You are not just an accountant, a manager, a technician, a student. You are a full spectrum being with depth, emotion, strength, creativity, and dreams that don't fit on a resume. Reclaim what once lit you up. Maybe it was drawing, writing, playing music, building things with your hands, martial arts, philosophy, gardening, dancing, moving your body freely, sitting in stillness, watching the wind. Maybe you're not good at any of those things. That doesn't matter. This isn't about performance, it's about presence. This isn't about status, it's about wholeness. And the simple act of doing something that awakens your soul is already a return. Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL and leadership author, once said, "Discipline equals freedom." At first glance, it sounds like a paradox. But in this context, it becomes clear. Discipline isn't just about optimizing your day. It's about protecting space for the parts of you that the world ignores. It's about having a schedule that includes stillness, beauty, exploration, not just deadlines. Discipline to read, discipline to train, discipline to create, discipline to reflect. Because without that, we become machines, efficient, productive, but empty. The greatest war of the 21st century isn't outside. It's the war against forgetting who you are. And that war is silent. It doesn't explode. It erodes. You don't feel it all at once. You just wake up one day and realize you haven't created anything in years. Haven't felt wonder. Haven't felt depth. Haven't truly been present in your body, in your breath, in your being. That's what we're fighting against. And that fight isn't one with noise, it's one with awareness. Ryan Holiday, a modern Stoic author, understands this deeply. He writes every morning, trains his body, runs long distances, studies history, plays with silence. To him, all of it is one practice. He's not fragmenting himself, he's integrating. The runner is the thinker, the writer is the fighter. The modern human is also ancient. And the beauty of this path, it's available to you right now. You don't need to become a master overnight, you just need to begin. Start with 10 minutes. Pick up that guitar again, sketch something meaningless. Write one sentence that no one will read. Move your body in a way that feels alive. Read a line of poetry before sleep. Stare at a tree for 5 minutes. Train, create, reflect, feel, and above all, let go of the need to be perfect. Let go of the need to be productive. This isn't a performance. It's a return. You're not a project to optimize. You're a person to rediscover. And the beautiful thing is, as you begin waking up those dormant parts, everything else shifts. You become more centered, more alive, more creative, more aware. You're no longer just reacting, you're choosing. You're moving with intention. The brush brings you softness, the blade brings you clarity. Together they bring you back to yourself. Nietzsche said, "Become who you are, not who society told you to be." not who the algorithm rewards, but the full, radiant, complex version of you, the one that knows silence and sound, strength and surrender, because that's where technique meets soul. That's where the warrior becomes human. That's where the artist becomes whole. And in that space, you don't just live, you leave a mark, not in the world, in yourself. You walk taller, speak softer, move slower, think deeper, because when you carry both sword and brush, you carry a world that the rest forgot. And if any part of this message touched something inside you, if even one paragraph stirred something you haven't felt in a long time, thank you. This video was made for people like you, people who are tired of being half-live, people who want to go deeper, to wake up, to remember. If you want to support this kind of work, if you want to help keep this channel alive and independent, consider becoming a member. That's how we stay free to explore ideas like this long-form, thoughtful, soul-first. Until next time, remember, the greatest battle is not against the world. It's against the limit you place on your own becoming. And it's a war you win. With art, with stillness, with courage.